Hi, my name is Sonia Liang, and I'm the Director of Career Services of Pardee School of Global Studies at Boston University. So welcome everyone to the sessions on a Friday afternoon. Today, we're very excited that we get a chance to welcome our colleagues from the International Republican Institute, including a couple of our BU Pardee alumni as well. So they will be sharing insights into the exciting work that are happening in IRI and discuss exciting career opportunities available for students and recent graduates. So we're also hosting this event in partnership with APSIA, which is the Associations of Professional Schools of International Affairs, and which connects leading graduate schools worldwide specializing in international affairs. So we're very proud to be able to be partnering with APSIA to bring you opportunities like this one. And you can learn more about other sessions through their website, and they have a great YouTube channel as well. So that's the end of my commercial. Before we start, just a very quick reminder that we will be recording this presentation, but we'll pause the recording when we get to the Q&A session. So you have a chance to ask any questions you like, and you can come up to your camera if that's possible for you, and connect with our speakers. So now we just get started, and I will turn it to our speakers to introduce themselves.
Great. Thank you, Sonia. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Michelle Butler. I am a recruiter here at the International Republican Institute, or IRI. And we're excited to speak with you today about our work, our opportunities at IRI, and how you can get involved with us. Joining me today are Madison Peak, who is a program associate for our Women's Democracy Network, and Anto Rondon, who is a senior operations manager for our Latin America and the Caribbean division, both of whom are Pardee alumni, and they'll be sharing insights into their work, and will also be participating in a mini panel discussion later on. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to start by giving you a brief overview of IRI. We are a nonpartisan organization dedicated to advancing democracy and governance worldwide. We do work in over 60 countries to empower citizens, strengthen democratic governance, and foster political participation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a quick slideshow, and we're going to play a quick, about 4-minute video.
The key principle of democracy is simple. Everyone should have a voice in decisions that affect them, from picking the leader of their country to paving a road in front of their home. Over the past 3 decades, 47 new democracies have been born. Never in history have so many people collectively demanded their rights to directly participate in their own governing. But replacing authoritarian regimes with elections is never enough. As we have seen time and again, democratic governments have to deliver on their promises and improve the lives of their citizens. Standing in the way of stable, healthy democracies are a series of interconnected challenges: poverty, corruption, conflict, and crackdowns on democratic society. In the media, these challenges are addressed by top political leaders in high-level negotiations. But effective and sustainable solutions require more than that. Many different people and institutions need to be involved. Most importantly, the citizens themselves, the ones directly impacted in their daily lives. IRI has been working since 1983 with a clear mission: encourage democracy in places where it is absent, help democracy become more effective where it is in danger, and share best practices where democracy is flourishing. What we have learned over more than 30 years is that a strong local relationship between citizens and government is essential for democracy to thrive. At the local level, citizens participate, trust is built, and sensible solutions are developed to meet serious challenges. Around the world, IRI is working to build this democratic foundation. In Jordan, we created a mobile app, Bela Ditek, to let citizens set their own priorities. Now, mayors across the country are using this information to craft their budgets and local programs. In Colombia, we helped citizens understand their local government's activities through transparency offices, which exist throughout the country. Now, IRI is using the same principles to help citizens understand how to put mining royalties to good use. In Central America, we worked with governments to communicate with their citizens using radio, television, and social media. Now, citizens are more aware of what their government does, and government more aware of what their citizens think. In Kenya, we supported citizens to make sure public resources help the right people. These social audits are now helping to build trust between government and citizens in all parts of the country. In Ukraine, we used public opinion research to unite civil society and local political leaders in setting reform agendas. Now, citizens around Ukraine have used this opportunity to work together to stem corruption and put technology to work delivering services to citizens. IRI and its partners are using tools both old and new to bring citizens and governments together, making local solutions work to address global challenges. In towns and cities around the world, these local solutions are the mortar of democracy, fostering accountable and responsible governments and active and responsible citizens. IRI stands by our partners, as together we build a world where everyone has a bigger voice and a better future.
So through our work, as you see, we do help to strengthen democratic governance that are available, that are accessible, accountable, effective, inclusive, responsive, and transparent. Um, as you can see on the slide, these are some of the core ways that IRI makes an impact. First, we focus on amplifying marginalized voices, meaning that we're making sure that underrepresented groups like women, youth, and minority communities have a seat at the table and are actively involved in democratic processes. We also work to bring people together, whether it's fostering dialogue or encouraging civic engagement. Our programs that we work on create spaces for collaboration and shared action among citizens from all walks of life. And finally, we're committed to ensuring that elections truly count. Free and fair elections are the cornerstone of democracy, and we work to promote transparency and accountability so that people's voices are accurately reflected in the process. We are global. IRI currently has over 109 projects in 64 countries around the world. We are currently we have over 100 employees employed with IRI, and that is a mix between those who work with us here in the US and those who work overseas. As far as our areas of expertise, our work spans areas like civil society engagement, learning and evaluation, and promoting inclusivity in politics. At IRI, we do stick very closely to our core values of excellence, freedom, respect, teamwork, transparency, and accountability, because we strongly believe that these values are the foundation of our organization. As far as IRI's internship programs and any other opportunities, we offer a diversity of opportunities for students and recent graduates, from internships to entry-level roles across various divisions. For our interns, we hold 3 internship sessions throughout the year for the spring, summer, and fall. Students and recent graduates are able to partake in part-time or full-time roles and can participate either hybrid, or virtually. Our internships are paid. We're currently offering them at a DC minimum wage, which is $17.50 an hour. And if you'd like to learn more about IRI or stay connected, you can always visit us at our website, follow us on social media, or listen to our IRI podcast. So I will stop sharing my screen. So now I will go ahead and I will hand it over to Madison and Anto, and we will start a mini panel discussion. I'll start by asking Madison and Anto a few questions to dive deeper into their experiences. So for the first question, can you please share your career journey and what led you to work at IRI? And how did your academic background and experiences prepare you for your role? And Madison, we'll start with you.
Thank you so much for that question. I'm so excited to be here today. So first off, my career journey, I started off interning with different international organizations around the world, including the Czech Republic, the United Nations Association, and the United Nations Association of Greater Boston. I know they always work with Boston University students, so that was a great way to get involved in this career field initially. And when I started at Party, I wasn't really sure of what I wanted to do with a career, but I knew I wanted to work in an international field, which really drew me to this program. And so when I started my IR 601, I was working with Professor Grimes, and I really didn't know what to write for my final report in that course. And when I was talking with him, the topic of gender always came up for me. And so he actually encouraged me to write my final project on some international laws that were going on in Poland related to gender. And that really sparked my interest of combining gender and international careers. And so I actually stuck with gender throughout my entire time at Party, combining these two interests of mine. And then one day I decided I needed an internship. And so I was looking at the internship document and jobs document that Party makes available to its students on, I believe it's now on Handshake. And I saw the International Republican Institute was hiring interns. And I saw the Women's Democracy Network, and I thought that was a really great way to combine these interests. And so I started at IRI as a spring intern in 2023 before graduating, and I was able to transition that internship into a full-time job as a program associate with the same division, the Women's Democracy Network, which I've now been with for 2 years in January. So I think all of this just came together and culminated in working with IRI, and it's been an incredible experience. And I'm always happy to talk more with anybody interested in an internship and that transition from an intern to full-time.
Great, thank you, Madison. Anto, we'll go on to you.
Thank you, Michelle, and I'm very happy to hear about Madison's journey because it does sound pretty perfect in many ways. So for me, it goes a little bit further back because I'm a 2019 grad, and I started at Boston University as a philosophy major, and ultimately I graduated both philosophy and international relations. So I did go through Party. And for me, I come from Venezuela. So in my case, I wanted to go back to Venezuela at some point, but through my time at BU, it was clear that I couldn't go back home because of the situation in my country. And so instead, I wanted to do something that just related to my country and that kind of gave back to my country or my region or something related to that. And obviously I couldn't really do that through philosophy, or that was like a more abstract way. So that got me to IR. And that also led me to intern at the National Endowment for Democracy, which is one of the logos you see at the end of that video that isn't IRI. And I interned there in the summer before I graduated. The internships, by the way, are not paid, unlike IRI's internships. Just to say that. I hope we're allowed to say that. And I interned there. Then I went my last year at BU. And then basically I applied everywhere, but I knew that I specifically wanted to apply to the kind of NET family, which is the organizations that are devoted to democracy promotion, which is this kind of industry that what we do is we basically use the funding provided by donors such as the US government to give funding to local organizations in many countries across the world so that they can do the things that we believe keep democracies afloat, such as freedom of expression, having a free press, having strong political parties, having free and fair elections, women inclusion, but also inclusion of marginalized communities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was hired by IRI. So I graduated, and 2 weeks later, I drove down to DC. And well, I didn't drive, someone else drove, but I was in the car. And I started at IRI. So it's now been almost 6 years. And I've gone through, the whole thing from program associate to program manager. And the whole time I've been in the Latin America division, kind of also like Madison accomplished, like actually, realizing that dream of kind of giving back, not in my case, not to women in particular, but to Latin America, which is what I wanted to do. And most recently, I've now gone into the operations side of things, which is one of the phenomenal things about IRI, is that you're able to find other things that you want to do. If you, through your career, find that there's something you're better at, you can absolutely find your space in something else that you want to do.
Great, thank you both. For our next question, what is a project or initiative that you've been a part of at IRI that has made a significant impact on the communities that you serve? And Anto, since you're on screen, we'll start with you.
Right, as I take a sip of my coffee. I mean, there's so many things. I think that definitely, I would say working in Latin America, I would say that anything that has to do with independent media, to me, is very near and dear to my heart, because my parents were journalists and they've always been my heroes growing up. So I think that a big part of why I ended up doing international relations is because I was always aware of the world. I used to think that I was aware of the world because Venezuela was always kind of, things were always happening. But I have friends who were also in Venezuela, but they were caring about other things. And I think a big part of why I actually cared about the world is because my parents were journalists. So it means a lot to know that we have programming in Mexico and Colombia and in close spaces in Latin America as well, and in Ecuador and Bolivia, et cetera, that support journalism, that support journalists. And that means all the way from actually providing them digital security, physical security training when they're at their absolute worst, to also psychosocial assistance when they really, really need it, but also actually helping them form alliances amongst each other so that they can actually put out articles when, a given authoritarian regime blocks a given website, helping them get to know like different media outlet from one country with another so that they form an alliance. And then also when you've been at IRI for 6 years, you get to also see the growth of, given certain journalists, and you get to see some of them gain recognition and receive awards for the work that they do. And that's also very, very rewarding and touching, because ultimately anything that happens needs to get told. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. And so any election anywhere, there needs to be a record for that. So I think some of the most rewarding work that I've seen anywhere in Latin America, but also honestly across the work that we do in IRI has been the work that we do to support independent media.
Great, thank you. Madison, to you.
I have been thinking about how I want to answer this question, because the Women's Democracy Network, I have worked on so many projects and initiatives that are so meaningful to women around the world. So a little background information, WDN was founded in 2006. And since then, we've worked with over 12,000 women, male allies, and youth in over 130 countries. And of those, over 500 women have actually gone on from our programming to run for leadership positions and have been either elected or appointed. They've drafted and passed gender responsive legislation and led so many wonderful advocacy campaigns. And I think that to me is such a significant impact of our programming, just as a big overview. But I think for me, from what I've worked on recently, I got to lead WDN's 10 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence Global Advocacy Campaign this past June. And this is our 6th year leading this campaign, and it raises awareness about the various manifestations of gender-based violence in our communities, and it really tries to elevate different solutions to ending GBV. And this campaign produced a social media toolkit, which we posted on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Our partners were posting on Instagram, any social media platform that you can imagine. And we received over 38,000 engagements. And I think that this made a really big impact on me because I was able to interview one of our global network members who participated in the campaign and posted alongside us. And she had shared that this campaign had inspired her to advocate for other women in her communities who were facing violence in everyday life, like when they were going to the markets and getting catcalled. And she's gone on now since this campaign to lead her own advocacy campaigns and do some amazing work. So that to me is so amazing. And this campaign also led to a policy amendment in Nepal. It was recently submitted. I'll be posting a blog soon more about that actually with IRI. So I'm happy to share that later on. And we also united over 100 government officials and advocates to expand on policy proposals, gender responsive legislation. And so while that might not seem to be, we passed a gender responsive policy, we made an amendment. I think that being able to build the capacity of people and share our resources is just as significant. I've also worked on really great projects that have yielded phenomenal results in Ukraine and their reconstruction process. And I recently was in Tanzania. I was able to help my team put on a symposium in Tanzania for women in democracy to really say, well, what do we need in this region to advance democratic efforts? And I think convening these women, hearing from them, really made an impact on me and how our team is going to be working moving forward to just help everybody, which is something that I always wanted to do. So I think if you are interested in any of this, I'm happy to talk more, but this is a great career field to be in to make an impact.
Great. Thank you so much, Madison. Just so that we have time for the Q&A, I'll ask you guys one more question. And what is the advice that you would give to students who are interested in pursuing careers in international development or global policy? And Madison, we can start with you.
Yeah, so I think that the advice I have is just go for it. I think it's an exciting career field to be in, and there's so many different opportunities in this field, whether you're interested in program implementation, field work, or maybe doing some more back-end stuff. There's so many opportunities for every type of interest that you could have. And I would also suggest having coffee chats, finding a mentor, or just attending more events like this so that you learn about more organizations and kind of the work to see what you're interested in if you don't necessarily have the means or the time to do an internship.
Great, thank you. Anto, do you have any advice?
Yes, thank you. I would definitely say completely agree with what Madison said about meeting with people. I think that the most valuable thing that I learned at the NET internship was I was very privileged because the LAC team, the Latin American, the Caribbean team at the NET was only 12 people. So I got to meet with every single one of them at different times because it was a 3-month internship. So I really got to kind of get to know them and learn about their career paths. For reference, the headquarter team right now here in for LAC is like, I think more than 30 people. So I don't know if an intern would be able to sit down with every single one of us. But I would definitely say that you can do this at school right now with people, but you can also do it with, you know, either Madison or myself. And you can do it with other people in panels like this, but definitely in internships when you go, you know, even if you go to the internship and you actually realize that you hate it, first of all, that's great, actually. That's a great thing to learn. I was looking forward to learning something like that when I did my internship, and I actually realized that it was something I wanted to keep doing, which is also good. But at least definitely make sure that you meet everyone in there, because you will definitely learn something. Because you really never know what brought that person to where they are. And you see that here at IRI, like people have the weirdest career paths to get here. Some people were in local government in like Mexico and then they got here. Some people were in actual Congress here. Some people were doing something completely different, like they had a communications agency and then they came here. It's crazy what people, you know, could be doing before. So that applies obviously anywhere else where you get to actually intern. So I would definitely say people are the greatest resources that you can actually learn from. So take advantage of that.
What application and interview advice do you have for students interested in an IRI internship? And I think that is a great question. I would say one is to tailor your application. Ensure that your resume highlights any relevant experience, such as coursework, volunteer work, or any prior internships that relate to the position. Write a cover letter that connects your skills and interests directly to IRI's mission and the division that you're applying to. Mention any regional expertise or language skills if it applies. Definitely make sure that you do your research, understand IRI's mission. Some of our recent projects, a lot of that information is on our website, you know, well, within like our blog postings and other news articles that we post online. Familiarize yourself with, you know, some global democratic trends, challenges, and expect to have questions about your ability to handle certain responsibilities. They say use it's called the STAR method. Um, Situation, task, action, result, to answer any questions about past experiences. And definitely demonstrate and highlight your ability to work in diverse teams. IRI in itself, because even though we are a global organization, even our HQ office is a very diverse place to work. So you're not only working with people internationally, like some of our expatriates that are overseas, but also people who come, as Madison and Anto said, who come from different various backgrounds and professional places. So yeah, and if either of you have anything else that you want to add, please.
I would love to chime in since I went through this. I definitely second everything Michelle said, especially tailoring your resume and cover letter to the job, researching IRI and all of our core values. And I would say that in your interview, know the work that the team is doing, because we do share a lot of this on social media and on the website. And I think one thing that may have set me apart when I was interviewing for my internship was I researched WDN and the work that we've done since 2006. And I said, here's my background with academia and my previous internships, and here's what I can bring to the table to continue amplifying this work and some ideas of how we can make these things bigger and better. And I mean, here I am now, which is a really great success story and testament to that. And so being able to tie your current experience and academia to the role that you're looking into, that thematic area, that region, the country. And I always joke because Ambassador Mark Strella at Party was my mentor and my thesis advisor. And my colleagues at WDN attended my thesis defense, and Storella had asked me, you know, how does your thesis relate to the work that you're doing and the work that you want to do? And I think that was a great question. And I was able to put a bow on everything. And Yeah, I would say feel free to ask me if you have any other questions. You can reach out to me too outside of this. If you want any advice, I'm happy to look over your resume or anything.
Great. Thank you, Madison. Um, and either one of you can chime in at any time. What do you wish you knew about job searching and work before graduation?
I wish I knew that people don't email you to tell you that you're not getting a job, because it's kind of like disheartening that you don't get an answer unless you're kind of moving through the process. So I think I applied to 48 places and moved through in 2 or something like that, which I know is not necessarily like a terrible, I mean, I don't know what the situation is right now, but I did expect 46 no's, like actual no's, and instead I was ghosted 46 times, right? So I think something that I wish I was told was, if you're not accepted, you're just like, no one really tells you, unless you did kind of move through a specific point. Like if you get to an interview or something, you will get told or something like that. Something else that I wish I got told is that, the hiring processes have different times in different places. So, if a friend's getting hired first or something like that in a different industry or whatever, or like they got, I don't know, their phone screening and then an interview and then all of that in a month, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna get that same kind of timing, because it really depends on a lot of different factors.
What are some common misconceptions about IRI and the work that we do? And either one of you can jump
I
in.
can I can I can jump in. I think that's a great question. I think the biggest misconception about the work that we do is the R in our name. I think the biggest misconception is that we're actually partisan. I think some of that goes back to our creation, actually. So we were created after the Westminster Abbey or Westminster Address by President Reagan um, back in 1982. There was just in general his desire for the world, but Western countries to have a push for democracy promotion, and this idea that the best way to fight for things like Vietnam and etc. was not only military, but also this kind of prevention and defending democracy through the kind of work that we now do. But it didn't exist. Like, this was a new concept. And so at the time, he tasked Congress to evaluate what this would look like. And eventually, a year later, that became the National Endowment for Democracy, the International Republican Institute, the National Democratic Institute, the Solidarity Center, the Center for International Private Enterprise, and I think that's it. I may be missing one. No, I think that's it. And that's the Net family. And at first, it was believed that NDI and IRI were going to be like extensions or representatives, if you will, of the two parties. And some of that exists to today in the shape of the boards of directors of both entities, in that, the boards are made up 50-50, I would say, of non-elected people and then elected people, and the elected people and the NDI are Democrats, and the elected people at IRI are Republicans. But that's it. Everything else has absolutely nothing to do with partisanship. And the only reason that it's kind of split and we still kind of hold the directors to be that way is that we want to keep getting funding from the US government, and we ally with NDI so that we every year continue to go with our directors, who work together, by the way, the Democrats and the Republicans in each board, to keep going back and ask for more funding, because we believe, as Reagan did back then, that we need to promote democracy. And we mostly work in countries that have deteriorating democracy, but we also work in some that have strong democracies, that democracy can be perfected. And that's the work that we do. But it's a huge misconception, and it's something that we deal with every day, probably even with our friends and families. So yeah, that's the biggest one.
Don't really have anything additional to add, other than I think one important thing to note is that we do survey people in different countries, and we really do ask people, what do you need and how can we help you, to provide the tools and resources and equip people with the ability to do what they need to do in their countries. It's not just us going in and saying, here's what you need. Like, we're really there to help people and whatever they need instead of just pushing things onto them.
Great. Before I go on to the next question, I do also want to state that everything that IRI does is international. It's global. We don't do any domestic work. So that's something else that's important to note. What would you all say are distinctions that still exist between NDI, NED, and IRI today?
I can start. So the easiest is NED, the distinction between NED and then NDI and IRI. NED only works with civil society organizations, and they don't do any direct implementation. So they don't have any offices anywhere else outside of the US. They have a huge office here in DC, beautiful office, better than IRI and NDI's office maybe. And they travel a lot and they visit their grantees, but they don't do direct implementation. They don't have like local staff that is doing direct implementation, and they only work with civil society organizations. The distinction between NDI and IRI, I would say, is it's like non-existent, other than the fact that we do have in every different country things we are better at in every country though. So I wouldn't say that globally there's something we're better at. They don't have the WDN. So, I mean, I would love to say that they don't have that area of expertise. They also don't have a center for global impact. They have other thematic areas that they do have. But for example, I'm sure there's a country where they actually have more presence than we do. Or they've been doing elections for longer than we have. And so it actually would be unfair for us to go and say that IRI is the expert in elections there. But there's another country where we've been supporting independent media for longer. And that's like our biggest thing. But in terms of things that we do, both NDI and IRI support civil society organizations. We can work with companies, we can work with like local contractors, vendors, etc. All of that is kind of like a lot more open than it is with NED, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was really a lot of insightful answers, and also, help us to kind of be part of your world a little bit and seeing what you do in your work. I would like to ask like our two alumni to just like share maybe one closing statement, advice that you have for students who are currently looking for internships and jobs, and what are something that you wish they know at this point since you've been through that journey.
I'm happy to jump in on that first. I would say my best advice would be, when you're looking for internships or a job post-grad, don't limit yourself based on a job description, because I did that and it was the most frustrating thing to say, oh, they're looking for Excel experience, but my class used Stata and not Excel, right? So don't limit yourself, because if the company really wants to hire you, they will invest in you and help you build those skills.
That's phenomenal. I mean, I would say Excel is great. Definitely Excel is phenomenal, but I do agree 100% with Madison, because something that I've realized, because after 6 years, you do work with people that, are better than others, let's say. And the one thing that's kind of like the common thread with the best of the best is the desire to learn. That is the one thing that you just can't teach. Someone can come in with the best Excel skills, but they have terrible attitude, or they're super rude, or they just don't fit the culture, they're not engaged, or they don't care about the mission. And that's like super important for us, because sometimes, we do have to work a little overtime or stuff like that. And if you don't care about the mission, then you probably don't want to work over. So I'd rather have someone who cares about the mission, but doesn't even know what a cell in Excel is, and is happy to learn that, is willing to learn that. And those are the people that I've enjoyed working with so much. And I do say that absolutely what has kept me at IRI for so long, and I will definitely still be at IRI for at least 6 more years, if not more, is the people. Absolutely. So the willingness to learn and the attitude is what will get you the furthest.
Great, thank you. We do have our Deputy Director of Recruitment and Talent, Kelly Gray, in the chat. So I'll just reiterate what she said. We will be posting our summer internships in February. So definitely look out for those on Handshake. We post everything on LinkedIn. The applications are open for 30 days. Again, these are part-time positions, full-time positions, hybrid, virtual. Again, you can visit us on IRI.org, follow us on social media. And if that's it, thank you guys so much and have a great day and happy holidays to all of you.